You also said that you are involved in group relations conferences. I'm asking because colleagues who are watching the video maybe doesn't know this.
Yes,
Can you tell a little
for
bit about
many
this?
years. Well, I first started, I think, in 1974. Although I had some knowledge about it, because at that time I was teaching at the University of Texas Medical Branch, and people that were in residency training were involved in a small group process with somebody that was a group relations consultant. Frankly, we became a little concerned about what was happening with the residents, which is what led me to go to my first actual conference, to see what we could understand about what they were experiencing. And so I went skeptically and left positively, and I've been involved ever since.
Mm-hmm. And who was the director at that time?
The director of that first conference was Bill Hausman, who was the first president of the AKRI Institute.
Okay. And then you have conducted and directed many, many conferences yourself?
Yes, over the years, after several years of consulting, and beginning to get a better sense and a better sense and a better sense. Most of that, my early conferences were conducted at the University of Missouri Medical School. I was not teaching there, but was affiliated with people that were. And because I had this little bit of experience, got brought in and gradually gained more experience with more senior people.
When you direct conferences, what is important from your point of view? What would you advise newcomers or new directors or directors who are planning a conference? What is important?
Well, I think careful planning, pre-conference. So I tend not to be very casual about that. Hiring staff that you feel that you really trust to have integrity. For the most part, in more recent years, I've hired people that I didn't really personally know because of the importance of bringing young people along. But initially, I was always hiring people that I had either worked with or had seen their work in some capacity, who I thought worked with real integrity, who were very open to the unconscious, who took a sort of non-critical stance, because many years ago, well, people didn't mean to be critical, I think. There was a style of consulting that really became very kind of critical, if not insulting to people. I did not think that provided useful learning, so I tried very hard not to hire those kinds of people for staffs. I think those are the important things.
So what is the stance of those colleagues or people you would not invite or you are critical with?
People who had the capacity for making statements, interpretations, that were taken up as being really critical statements of people. For the most part, they tended to talk in, I suppose, from the non-psychological perspective, in language that was considered more psychobabble. They did not fully explain what they were saying, so that people were left just wondering what in the hell they were talking about. And then that was always perceived as a negative. I did not think that that was useful for learning, although I must say my style was somewhat that way to begin with too, because those were the models that I had seen.
So how would you describe your style?
I suppose I tend to be, one, I have always been and still am somewhat sarcastic, but that's usually taken up with some sense of humor, and I think that's very useful. But I also try to be very clear about why I say what I say, so that I do think I present some data about that, rather than just leaving people with this sort of, this came out of nowhere.
Well, this is very helpful for staff members watching us as well. Thank you. And you are also not only AKRI's member, but also you have been president of AKRI's?
I served, yes, I served on the board of the AKRI Institute for several years in the 90s, and then was, as you may know, the AKRI Institute holds elections. I mean, these are not just appointed people, but I was twice elected as president in the 90s, one term succeeding the other. And then in the early 2000s, the Institute underwent some changes and suddenly found that nobody wanted to run as president. So I ran unopposed, primarily just to lend some continuity to the Institute.
What is the mission of AKRI's, of the AKRI's Institute?
Well, I suppose the mission is very much like most group relations organizations. It is to provide understanding in terms of group processes and bring about societal change, and I mean all of that. But the real mission, just bottom line, is to support the continuing work of group relations in the United States.
It works, right? I mean, you have a lot of conferences, not only the international one or the national one, but also...
Yes, the AKRI Institute is set up as a group of affiliates, or what we used to call centers, various locations in the United States, that then are all kind of incorporated into this more federated organization, so that there is a board of directors for the AKRI Institute, and then these various centers or affiliates are kind of semi-independent organizations, but collectively grouped together as the AKRI Institute. Each of those puts on conferences, as well as a national conference, or what in recent years has been called the International Conference.
I should have asked you before, what is your professional background? What is your original profession?
I was, and until I retired, I remained a professor of child and adolescent psychiatry.
The university?
I taught at several universities, medical schools, yes.
Is there anything else which is important? You talked about Ryok. Mrs. Ryok, you worked with?
Margaret Ryok, who really was the founder of the AKRI Institute.
She was the founder.
She is the one who is responsible. She and a group of people came over to the Leicester conference years ago, and then she talked Ken Rice into coming to the United States and directing a conference there. I don't remember if he directed one or two, but then he died, and she took over the directorship of that conference, and then founded the AKRI Institute and named it for Ken Rice, which probably is not the best advertisement because nobody knows what the AKRI Institute stands for, but it is the Group Relations Association in the United States. And she remained very active for many years, and of course is passed on now, but
Did you have personal mentors in this field of group relations, and who was it?
Well, that's a good question. I've always wished I had. Somebody that I had individually really been mentored by. I had a lot of mentors in a sense, but they were people that, because we were really basically amateurs, that when we started out, we would bring in more established people, mostly from the East Coast, to work with these conferences that I mentioned in Missouri.